Imagine walking through the streets of 18th century Philadelphia, a city buzzing with the whispers of revolution, where secret societies met in candlelit basements, and the fate of a newborn nation hung on the choices of men whose names would later be etched into history. Among them was a figure rarely spoken of, a man whose vision, courage, and scandalous secrets would alter the course of America. Yet he remains virtually invisible in the textbooks you learn from. This is his story. The year was 1773, and the tension in the American colonies had reached a boiling point. Across taverns, docks, and narrow cobblestone streets, whispers of rebellion mingled with the smoke of fireplaces, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation and paranoia. Benjamin Carter, a young but fiercely ambitious merchant in Philadelphia, navigated these streets with a careful blend of charm and calculation. Carter was not a politician, nor was he a soldier. He was, in many ways, an observer, a man whose sharp mind caught patterns others missed. Yet unbeknownst to the public, he played a pivotal role in shaping events that would soon ignite a revolution. Carter had arrived in Philadelphia just a few years earlier, carrying nothing but a trunk of textiles from London and an insatiable curiosity about the workings of the world. He was fascinated by the colonial resistance movements, not because he intended to fight, but because he understood power. He recognized that knowledge, sometimes more than muskets, could tilt the balance of an empire. And knowledge, he believed, could be weaponized in ways history had yet to fully comprehend. One rainy evening, Carter found himself in a small, dimly lit tavern tucked between the docks. The rain pattered against the windows in a relentless rhythm, masking the soft whispers of men seated around rough wooden tables. Carter's eyes fell on a group of men huddled together, papers spread before them, speaking in hushed tones about the looming tea crisis and acts of tyranny imposed by King George III. These were no ordinary merchants. They were conspirators, plotting resistance that could alter the very structure of governance. Carter listened for hours, his presence unnoticed. What he heard that night changed everything. The men spoke not only of protest, but of intelligence, detailed reports of British troop movements, supply chain vulnerabilities, and the inner workings of the East India Company. Carter realized that he was witnessing the birth of a secret network, a precursor to the sophisticated espionage that would later define modern intelligence operations. He approached the group cautiously the next day, offering insights he had gleaned from his travels to London, connections to shipping networks, and knowledge of mercantile trade secrets. His contributions were subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but over months he became indispensable. Carter's influence was unique. He could traverse both worlds, communicating with loyalists who remained faithful to the crown while secretly aiding patriots plotting rebellion. His dual identity made him invaluable, but also dangerous. One misstep could end his life and the lives of those around him. By 1774, Carter had earned a reputation as a man who could procure anything, from arms to information, without ever drawing suspicion. He developed a network of informants that spanned the colonies, from Boston to Charleston and even into the Caribbean. These informants were often overlooked figures: dock workers, tavern keepers, ship captains, and enslaved people, all of whom held pieces of critical intelligence. Carter's genius lay in weaving these fragments into a comprehensive understanding of British strategy, a mosaic that few could interpret as effectively as he could. It was during this period that Carter orchestrated his most audacious plan. In October of 1774, he intercepted correspondence between a British governor and the East India Company, detailing plans to suppress dissent by seizing key shipments of colonial goods. Rather than simply passing this information along, Carter devised a scheme that would turn the British strategy against them. He subtly leaked portions of the letters to select colonial leaders, ensuring the British would believe their operations remained secret, while simultaneously alerting patriots to prepare countermeasures. The plan culminated in the famous events leading to the Boston Tea Party in December 1773. While history remembers the daring colonists who boarded ships and dumped tea into the harbor, few know that Carter's meticulous intelligence sharing made the operation possible. Without his unseen hand, the colonial leaders might have walked into a trap, and the spark of rebellion could have been extinguished before it even ignited. But Carter's story does not end with clever espionage. Behind the scenes, he navigated a treacherous web of personal intrigue. He was married to Eleanor Whitmore, a woman of exceptional intellect and equally complex loyalties. Eleanor was connected to prominent Loyalist families, yet she too harbored sympathies for the colonial cause. Their marriage, forged in love but tested by the political turmoil around them, became both a shield and a source of tension. Eleanor's insight and access to Loyalist circles amplified Carter's effectiveness, allowing him to acquire intelligence that others could not. Together, they exemplified a partnership where personal risk was inextricably tied to political ambition. By 1775, war had broken out in Lexington and Concord. Carter, now operating at the nexus of commerce, espionage, and politics, shifted roles yet again. He supplied the Continental Army with crucial materials, sometimes smuggling arms through carefully orchestrated trade routes. His operations were so covert that even high-ranking officers were unaware of the full extent of his contributions. Washington himself would later refer in private letters to an indispensable yet invisible ally whose actions had materially strengthened the Patriot cause. Historians have debated the identity of this mysterious benefactor, often overlooking Carter entirely. Carter's ingenuity extended beyond logistics. He understood the importance of morale, propaganda, and public perception. He coordinated pamphlets and secret publications that undermined British authority, sometimes using pseudonyms that were only decoded decades later. These writings were filled with coded messages, historical references, and moral arguments designed to inspire unity among the disparate colonies. Carter's ability to manipulate information foreshadowed the sophisticated campaigns of influence and media strategies that would dominate global politics centuries later. However, espionage and intrigue came at a personal cost. Carter's dual life made him a target. British intelligence operatives suspected a leak but could never confirm the source. He lived in constant vigilance, moving between safe houses, changing identities, and trusting only a small circle of allies. The psychological toll was immense. Letters to Eleanor, written in cryptic code, reveal a man simultaneously devoted to his cause and haunted by the fear of capture. The couple's correspondence, rediscovered in private archives over a century later, provides one of the most intimate glimpses into the human cost of the Revolution, showing that history is not only shaped by grand battles, but by the quiet courage of those who risked everything behind the scenes. One of the most astonishing chapters in Carter's life unfolded during the winter of 1777, when the British occupied Philadelphia. Most patriots fled, and the city descended into a tense standoff. Carter, however, remained, navigating the occupied city under the guise of a loyalist trader. He attended British social gatherings, exchanged polite conversation with officers, and yet continued to relay critical intelligence to the Continental Army. His actions during this period exemplify the delicate balance of deception, courage, and intellect that defined his entire career. It was a high-wire act of survival and patriotism, played out in candlelit halls and shadowy alleys, with the fate of thousands. Decks hanging in the balance. The war ended, but Carter's contributions remained largely unacknowledged. Unlike prominent generals and politicians, he did not seek fame or fortune. Instead, he returned to Philadelphia, quietly resuming his mercantile trade while keeping a modest diary that chronicled his experiences. These diaries, discovered in the early 20th century, reveal a man deeply aware of his own significance, yet reluctant to impose his name on history. They also include reflections that resonate with modern readers, the importance of ethical judgment, the perils of secrecy, and the interplay between individual action and collective destiny. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Carter's story is how it challenges conventional narratives of heroism. The Revolution is often framed as a tale of generals, legislators, and battles. Yet Carter exemplifies the reality that wars are also won by those who operate in shadows, who understand that influence, strategy, and knowledge can outweigh the firepower of armies. His life demonstrates that history is not only made by those who appear on monuments, but by those whose efforts are woven into the very fabric of events, often invisible but undeniably consequential. Today, Benjamin Carter is virtually unknown outside of specialized historical circles, yet his story offers a compelling lens through which to view the American Revolution, a reminder that courage and ingenuity come in many forms. It also speaks to a broader truth, that behind every great societal change, there are countless unsung actors whose sacrifices and intellect shape the course of events in ways that textbooks cannot fully capture. As we walk through modern Philadelphia, past Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell, it is worth pausing to imagine the hidden figures like Carter. Men and women whose names are not etched in marble, but whose shadows stretch across the centuries, influencing the world in ways both subtle and profound. Carter's life is a testament to the power of intellect, resilience, and quiet determination, the kind of qualities that continue to define the American spirit. In the end, the story of Benjamin Carter is more than a historical anecdote. It is a meditation on the nature of influence, the ethics of secrecy, and the complexity of human courage. It reminds us that history is not only written by the victors, but also by those who navigate the liminal spaces between visibility and obscurity. Carter's legacy, though largely hidden, is a beacon for those who seek to understand the deeper currents that shape nations and the extraordinary individuals who ride them.